All right, this is gonna be the recap from our intro to rope dart class from a couple weeks ago. First thing we talked about was how to put on the dart. So most darts are gonna have a loop on the end like this. It's too small for our wrist. So the way we actually get it on is we're gonna take the rope, feed it up through that loop, and create a slip knot that can go around our wrist. When we put that on, you can see now it's connected and it's not gonna go anywhere. However, next thing we talked about was what length we want the rope to be. So our goal is going to be that when we're holding the rope like this, that the dart head is going to be just off the ground. But I shouldn't have any of this excess here. So I need to take up all of that excess. And the way I can do that is I come back to this slip knot, I reach inside of it, and I pull more rope through, and then I can just feed that around my wrist as many times as I need. And that's going to vary for everybody based on your height, your wingspan, and the length of your dart. But now you can see that when I've got the rope running across my body and down, it's off the ground, and I don't have any excess over here on this side. Next, we talked about nomenclature that's a little bit different from like poi. So the first thing is going to be, we're going to talk about our anchor side, or our anchor hand. That's going to be my non-dominant hand, my left hand, where the rope is attached to. And then we've got our lead hand, which is going to be the hand that's normally driving where the dart is going. And that's our lead side and our anchor side. Next thing we talked about is rope dart comes from kind of a martial arts background, and with it, footwork becomes really important as we move forward. So we want to understand a good stance to start in. So what we're going to do is, if I'm in a forward spin that we would talk about in poi, in wheel plane, I don't want to have my feet together. I want to have a bit of a staggered stance, kind of like a boxer would have. So if you think about a boxer stance, they're going to be here. So I've got that slight stagger that allows me to face forward, and gives me a lot of balance. Then we talked about the direction of the dart. So if the dart is moving forward, what we think of as forward in poi, that is going to be a down spin because it's coming down in front of us. Same with a reverse spin in poi, we're going to call that an up spin. And so we started playing around with that, where we can do anything that we would do with poi, with a single poi. So you can do a flowers, you can do reels, anything like that. But the first thing we want to talk about, or the first thing we started to learn, was different spins to move around in space. So that's going to be similar to in poi, where we might do a weave, and we want to move it side to side of our body. We have, with the rope dart and the extra length of rope, we have other options, and that's because if we allow the dart to wrap around a part of our body, so for example, if it goes around my wrist here, when I bring it to the other side, it wants to unwrap. And so we can utilize that to do different spins to move the dart from side to side. So the first one we did is an elbow spin. What that looks like is here and back. And so the key to doing that is I'm going to bring the rope in my lead hand, and I'm going to bring my hand up to my armpit, and that'll allow the dart to wrap around kind of my tricep, or the middle of my upper arm. And then once it starts to wrap, then we can bring it to the other side, and it'll want to unwrap on its own. So again, here. And then when I'm coming from the opposite side, rather than bringing it in towards my shoulder kind of horizontally, I want to do more of a bicep curl that allows it to place across my tricep. So again, that bicep curl, and then comes back across. Looking at that from a front view, we can have the lead elbow spin from one side, and then coming back across with the other. And you'll notice that each time I do that, I'm taking a step with my feet to stay in a balanced position. So again, it's going to be here. When I do that lead spin, I'm going to step forward and come into a wall plane where my feet are aligned. And then when I come back, I'm going to step back into that same kind of fighting stance that we had before. The next elbow spin we did is we can do that same thing with our anchor elbow. So for that one, we're going to want to bring our anchor arm across, catch the dart, and then bring it back to our anchor side. And so what that'll look like is I'm going to be here, reach across, and around. So those are anchor spins. And we can utilize those if instead of stepping forward and back, if we continue to step forward with each one, we can move ourselves through space. So that might look something like this, where I'll do a lead elbow spin, and then a lead elbow spin back, and then an anchor elbow spin, and an anchor elbow spin back. And you can see I've covered ground now as well. So depending on your footwork will dictate where you go on the stage. The next type of spin we talked about was a thigh spin. So the first one there is what that'll look like is you can kind of come here, come across. We can do that with the inside of our thigh or with the outside of our thigh to bring it back. And then we can do that with our lead leg, or we can bring our anchor leg across and bring it back around. So from the front, what that's going to look like is here. And the keys we want to think about here again is we want to place the rope onto our thigh. So you don't want to have your hand way up here and be aiming for your thigh, because you don't leave a lot of dart going through. Instead, I want to bring my hand to meet my thigh, and it'll give me more time to do the spin. And then the other thing is when I take that, you'll notice when I take my step, I need to give space for the dart to be able to unwind. So when I step across, you can see my the foot that's bringing the dart actually goes further and creates this window for that unwrap to happen in. So that was our thigh turns. Next, we talked about a neck spin. So what that's going to look like is if I'm in a forward spin, I can bring my neck down in front and then use that to pivot the dart. And then we can also come back by laying it back across and stepping through. So from the front, what that'll look like is here. And same concepts apply. We want to bring our hand up to our neck so that we know where we're placing the dart, and giving us more control. We want to make sure our steps are really clean to help it unwind. Yeah, and that was the neck spins. We also can use our neck to move the dart from one side of our body to the other without taking a step. And so that's going to be kind of a yes nod up and down, or called a yes no neck spin. So what that might look like is here. And we can even load it on from our backside as well. So I'll do forward, forward, and then back. So those are our neck spins. And again, from the side, what that'll look like is here, and then just bringing it to the backside by arching our back. So those were our neck spins. Next, we moved into our pendulums. And these are gonna be a little bit different than what we do in poi. So in poi with pendulums, we're using our arm to create all the momentum. In rope dart, what we can do is we can actually utilize this idea of when the dart's spinning or moving in a certain direction, if we release the tension, it's gonna wanna shoot out in that direction. So we can be spinning in a circle, release the tension with our lead hand, and it'll shoot out. And then when it's out at a distance, all we have to do to bring it back is pull with our anchor hand, pull the rope back in, and that'll bring it back to us. Then we can cast it out to the other side, let that slack out, and then pull it back in. And when you do that, as you time that up right, the pendulums, you'll start to get this seesaw motion with your anchor hand, but my lead hand does not have to move anywhere. And this is gonna be really important for later on when we're trying to recover a shot that we do or something and bring the dart back to us. So we really want to nail in that pendulums should be all moving with our anchor hand. And then finally, the last thing we talked about was our anchor, was our first shot, or an anchor elbow shot. And so what that looks like is, so what that'll look like is here to shoot it out. And so again, what we're doing is we're building tension around our elbow, and then our goal is just to release that tension when the dart is moving in the direction we want it to. So in order to do this shot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the dart onto my tricep. So as it's coming around, I'm going to place the rope onto my tricep or my elbow. And then as the dart comes back up and around, when it reaches this top point and is moving to my right, all I want to do is straighten my arm so that the rope falls off my elbow and it's able to go out. And you can see I'm, as long as I catch the rope again in my lead hand, I can go straight back into my pendulums. I think we talked about, so that would be shooting it with our lead elbow in the reverse direction. You can do the same thing, where maybe now if I'm in a downspin, I can wrap around. I can wrap around an extra half a time to where it's coming up, to where it's moving in front of me before I release it. And that's called a smash shot or a forward elbow shot. And then we can even do it with our anchor hand, where we bring the elbow across to do our shot. So what that'll look like is I'll bring the elbow across, shoot, and then come back into our pendulums. And that was our Intro to Rope Dart series. This is based on the Rope Dart 101 through 103 provided by Rope Dart Academy. So they've got a whole series on Rope Dart, and if you learn really well from videos, that's a great utility that you can go check it out. They also make these great rope darts, so I would always advise supporting them if you're looking for a great practice start. And yeah, that was our Intro to Rope Dart class. Thanks.